Okay, last things last. So normally when you do a comp like this, there's a couple things you just pretty standard do to try and add integration. So first things first, at the bottom of my tree, and if you have it organized like I do, you can pretty easily see, here's my B stream, like this whole big shebang. And I can go, here's my background, here's where we add the drone, here's where we add the footage of the guys, here's where we add the hologram, which I have two flavors of here, but let's just pretend I have the one. So what can I do to make this look more real, more integrated? Well, normally what people like to do in comps is first you have your write node, which you need to export your stuff anyway. But if you put that in there and just kind of pull it down, not necessarily that much, but just like a chunk, a pretty common comp practice is to do this, where you can literally make a backdrop node and kind of put it here. And this is kind of your post color corrections. Now what that means is that, so like I've been kind of coloring the guy on his level, I colored the drone on its level, I colored the background, but there's something to be said for when you do it all together at the end that kind of blends everything together. So for instance, if I take a grade after everything's been combined, all the glows, all the blurs, all the parts, everything is together, I can literally just do overall color corrections to the whole shot, and you can see it's affecting everything equally. So maybe I want more contrast, you know, depends what you're after. Maybe I want different color integrated in there. Maybe I like that. I don't know. But basically whatever you want to do, and see that's affecting everything equally in the shot, and it just naturally kind of helps tie it together a little bit. You can always do something like a glow overall to everything. So my image is super bright, so it's going to look pretty aggressive, but if I tone that way down, and see even just a little bit like that, it helps tie it together, and you can dial in settings and get it how you like it. Another common one is to add grain. So that's a good one to do last in your comp, but it is an important one that we usually always do for when we're matching footage like this. So you can see it's pretty heavy-handed when I just throw it in here. But if you look, that background, all these different parts don't quite, especially CG parts, don't render with the same camera grain that we see in real footage. And we're blurring stuff and doing stuff with all these over the course of things that you can't see as much. And like if I was really going through this, I'd go through and try to get a better key on his hair and do some things. But basically we can kind of blend everything together with a layer of grain. So if you make a grain node out of the box, it's a little heavy-handed. Like I said, you can kind of see. It does kind of a red, green, blue thing. You see it a lot kind of up here. But it basically, the only thing you got to worry about, there's tons of presets. You can fiddle with them if you want. Usually all I do is kind of come in here and play with these, the red, green, and blue size, and just kind of get it somewhere a little you're more happy with. You can kind of fiddle with it and see. Some are less saturated looking than others and things, but you just want a little bit of grain. And just, it's hard to see. You'll never probably notice it at size, but that little bit of grain helps tie the whole shot together. It helps kind of blend everything a little bit better. You could also, Nuke used to be able to do chromatic aberration super easy, and that was really fun. But you could also put a vignette. So a vignette's just where the natural camera shutter, the camera housing darkens the very edge of the frame. The easiest way to do that is with a radial and using a radial as a mask. So if you look at the radial, you can see it's literally just a radial. It's a big shape. So usually I go a little bigger than the image itself and just kind of scale it up. You can kind of see if you invert this with your brain, those corners is kind of what you would see for a vignette. But get it kind of how you like it. And then usually it's the very last thing in your comp you can apply a vignette. So I usually do these with a grade and hook the mask handle from the grade into your radial. And out the box, you're going to see this looks not great. So if I just multiply all the way down, it's dark in the middle of the frame. But if I hit this invert button by the mask, it does more what I want it to do. It darkens the edge of the frame. So that one I have here is pretty heavy-handed. I'd probably want to add a blur and soften it out a little bit more. Say like 200. Softens that edge some. Like you can play with this as much as you like, but then you can also kind of dial in this mix, because usually you never have vignettes go like super, super, super dark. But maybe I like that. But maybe I want to make sure my radial is not quite as affecting things as I want. You can still literally kind of do like what I'm doing here and go through. And since a vignette is glued to the camera, not to anything else, you don't have to animate this. You don't have to do anything with this, and it's going to feel correct. It would feel more wrong if it did animate. But you can see then my center of my image stays a little brighter. My edges get darker. If I really spend some time kind of dialing this in, I can make this a lot more of what I want it. But that would be kind of simulating what you can do with a vignette if you want a little more drama in there. The last thing I'm going to show, and I showed in class, is light wraps. So typically whenever we have any elements kind of being layered to get on top of stuff that are not glowy things like, lightning bolts or holograms and things like that, we would want light wrap. And that's because whenever you put something in front of something else, you're naturally going to get some bleed over of the light that's happening there. That was actually why in this example, from here, I brightened up this corner in class, was because I wanted something super bright that I could show you. Like this guy is unnaturally brightly lit. So if that bugs you like it bugged me, I just kind of cranked this up so I can make it fit a little bit better. But the way a light wrap works, if you haven't had a chance to use one, so I'm going to start on my guy here, my people. So if you just click and make a light wrap, you can see it has two handles, A and a B. The way you can always know that you're using a light wrap correctly is basically a light wrap is only put under, like applied to the thing that you want light to wrap around. So think about it like that. We always talk about A streams, B streams. B is usually your background, like B for background. It's kind of the bigger thing in the background, kind of all this. That's our B stream. That is what we want to blur, or we want to light wrap. Because think about it, if this is what our guy looks like, this is our alpha, this is our guy, we would want him to basically see everything that happens right above here. If you hold down control, you can make the little dot notes, and usually I always make one kind of right above my merges for this reason. If I view right here, I can see literally everything before the guy gets on there, which is what I want. The drone's on there, the background, everything is how I have it. So if I do that, if you grab your light wrap and basically know I need it to affect this guy, not this guy. You don't ever have it affect your background. If I hook it in and let go, it's a better way to do that for these. I'll show it again. If you grab the node and just kind of hover over your line that you want to put it until it lights up and then let go. See the A hooked in, not the B? If you do a merge, it's going to do the other way around. Usually you're trying to hook things into your B stream. But for this, they know you're basically, here's the thing I'm trying to light wrap. So what are you looking at for it to wrap, like to have as the information to use when it wraps? Well, the background, the thing behind you, should be this. So this would be how you would hook up a light wrap. And out of the box, it doesn't, it's typically got your intensity is going to be down to 0, but if you crank it up, like you can break it, and like if you look over here, you can see that is not what you would want. But if you do a low enough value, like you can see that's pretty decent. You start to get where the brighter spots in your image bleed out over onto your guy. You get some over here, and it starts to give you a more accurate result. So you can do tight ones of these, soft ones of these. If you ever want to look and see what it's doing, if you go to your light wrap and view it at the light wrap and say generate wrap only, you can literally see what it sees. It does have a tolerance if you want to choke up on stuff, or you could crank it up if you want a whole bunch more, but just make sure you're basically not adding extra hot bright spots anywhere. Oh, let me turn that off. But that would be how you would apply light wraps. And it works for everything. I can even literally just copy this and go up to my drone. And at the point of the drone, You do want to apply your light reps at the end of your trees, by the way, but you don't want to apply them after a defocus or a blur. You want to apply them before. That defocus or a blur should be the last thing you do. But I'm basically going to copy that same one. Make my little dot node above there and hook it in. So not the easy, here, I'll go to like one of the frames when he's over here so you can see it a little bit better. So super subtle, but adds a lot of integration. So that's kind of your best bets in terms of integrating things.